Welcome to this tutorial where we will solve two common WinForms problems, creating modern navigation menus and managing icons without bitmap files. Standard TreeView controls are limited. They offer rigid styling, outdated appearance, and minimal theming. Running the application shows correct highlighting, dynamic content updates, and crisp vector icons. Theme switching demonstrates the flexibility of this setup. A dark theme recolors menu elements, icons, and backgrounds instantly. A light theme restores bright colors. The switch happens without regenerating assets or managing image files. This approach solves two fundamental WinForms limitations: rigid menu styling and heavy icon management. KtMenu provides cascading CSS-like styling. KtSvgProvider renders SVG markup dynamically with runtime color control. Offline installation works without internet. Designer integration makes setup simple. The result is a modern, professional dashboard interface in WinForms. Managing icons traditionally requires dozens of image files at different sizes and colors. It quickly becomes a maintenance nightmare. Let's start with installation. The kim2.net package goes into the solution folder alongside the .sln file. It includes the NuGet file, documentation, and a configuration file. The NuGet.config file defines a local package source, which allows offline installation. In Visual Studio, select the local package source in the NuGet package manager and install kim2.net. The components will then appear in the toolbox. Next, the dashboard layout. A navigation panel with a dark background goes on the left. A second panel on the right becomes the main content area with a light background. Now the icon problem. Traditional image lists require separate files for every size and color. KtSvgProvider solves this by rendering SVG markup dynamically. The provider works together with a standard image list that defines the icon size. Icons come directly from tabular icons in SVG form. Each SVG is registered as a template in KtSvgProvider with a descriptive key. Templates can define a default color. image list then references these templates, meaning icons are reusable, scalable, and recolorable at runtime. With icons ready, the menu appearance is styled. Global settings are defined under the menu property, including background, text color, font, and border radius. Menu item styling gives regular navigation items their own background and border radius. Menu item selected defines bold text and high contrast colors for the active selection. Submenu styling sets up headers with bold text and distinct colors. Submenu expanded adds subtle highlights or borders when sections are open. Hierarchy lines can be enabled for clear structure visualization. The cascading style system ensures that only differences need to be overridden, while the rest inherit automatically. The menu structure itself is built with root items like dashboard, AI models, analytics, team, reports, and settings. Each item is linked to an image key from the SVG templates. Child items can be added under each category to represent deeper navigation. Functionality comes from the after select event. When a menu item is clicked, the selected node updates the content area dynamically. Running the application shows correct highlighting, dynamic content updates, and crisp vector icons. Theme switching demonstrates the flexibility of this setup. A dark theme recolors menu elements, icons, and backgrounds instantly. A light theme restores bright colors. The switch happens without regenerating assets or managing image files. This approach solves two fundamental WinForms limitations: rigid menu styling and heavy icon management. KtMenu provides cascading CSS-like styling. KtSvgProvider renders SVG markup dynamically with runtime color control. Offline installation works without internet. Designer integration makes setup simple. The result is a modern, professional dashboard interface in WinForms. Full documentation is included in the kim2.net docs folder. Thanks for watching.